The night was quiet in the small Korean village, the kind of quiet that made people sleep deeply and dream peacefully. Park Junho sat alone in his small house, eating cold rice and watching an old movie on his laptop. He was 28 years old, lived alone, and worked as a mechanic in the nearby town. His life was simple. His life was boring. He liked it that way. Then the sky broke open. A sound like thunder mixed with screaming metal tore through the night. Junho jumped from his chair, knocking over his bowl of rice. The windows of his house shook violently. Outside, a blinding light streaked across the darkness and slammed into the earth somewhere behind his property. The ground shook so hard that Junho fell to his knees. For a long moment he stayed there, breathing hard, his heart pounding in his chest. Car alarms screamed in the distance. Dogs barked wildly. Then silence returned, heavy and wrong. Junho grabbed a flashlight and ran outside. The air smelled strange, like burning metal and something else he could not name. He followed the smell to the back of his property, past his small vegetable garden, past the old shed where he kept his tools. There, in the middle of what used to be an empty field, was a crater. It was not large, maybe 10 meters across. Smoke rose from the edges. At the center, something glowed with a faint blue light. Junho approached slowly, his flashlight shaking in his hand. He expected to find a meteorite. He expected to find burning rock. He did not expect to find a woman. She lay at the bottom of the crater, surrounded by twisted metal that might have once been some kind of vehicle. She was tall, taller than any human Junho had ever seen. Her skin was silver, like polished steel, and it reflected the moonlight in strange ways. She had 4 arms, 2 on each side, and her hair was white as snow, spread around her head like a halo. Her eyes were closed, but even unconscious, her face held a fierce beauty that made Junho's breath catch in his throat. She was clearly not human. She was clearly not from Earth. Junho stood frozen at the edge of the crater. Every part of his brain screamed at him to run, to call someone, to hide in his house and pretend he had seen nothing. But then the alien woman moved. She groaned, a sound of deep pain, and her golden eyes opened. They found Junho immediately, locking onto him with an intensity that made his knees weak. She tried to speak, but blood came from her mouth instead of words. Silver blood, shining like mercury. She was dying. Junho made his decision without thinking. He slid down into the crater, the hot metal burning his hands as he grabbed onto wreckage for support. He reached the woman and saw that her body was covered in wounds. Deep cuts and burns marked her silver skin. One of her 4 arms hung at a wrong angle, clearly broken. But what caught his attention was the object she clutched against her chest. A cube perfectly black, about the size of a fist. It pulsed with a soft light that seemed to beat like a heart. The woman's eyes focused on Junho. She spoke, and somehow, impossibly, he understood her words. They were Korean, but broken and strange, as if she had learned the language only seconds ago. "Help me," she said. "They are coming." "Who is coming?" Junho asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Everyone." Her eyes began to close. "This object, it chose your world. Now they will come to burn it." She lost consciousness. Junho stared at her for a long moment, his mind racing. He could still run. He could still call the police or the military or anyone else. But something deep inside him, something he did not fully understand, refused to abandon her. With strength he did not know he had, Junho lifted the alien woman. She was heavy, far heavier than she looked, but he managed to drag her out of the crater. Step by step, he pulled her across his field, through his garden, and into his house. He laid her on his bed and stood there, breathing hard, covered in silver blood. Then he got to work. Junho had no medical training. He fixed cars and tractors, not living creatures. But wounds were wounds, and he had patched himself up plenty of times after accidents in the garage. He cleaned her cuts as best he could, using water and old towels. He wrapped her broken arm with wooden boards and tape. He did not know if any of it would help, but he did it anyway. The black cube sat on his kitchen table. He had taken it from her arms when he moved her. It felt warm in his hands, warmer than it should be. When he touched it, the light inside pulsed faster, brighter. It felt alive somehow, aware. Junho backed away from it and did not touch it again. He spent the rest of the night sitting in a chair beside his bed, watching the alien woman breathe. Her chest rose and fell slowly. The bleeding had stopped. He had no idea if that was good or bad. As dawn light crept through his windows, her eyes opened again. Those golden eyes, bright as suns, found him immediately. "You helped me," she said. Her Korean was better now, smoother. "Why?" Junho shrugged. "You were dying. I could not just leave you." The woman stared at him for a long moment. Something like confusion crossed her face. "I am Vera," she said. "I am a warrior of the Keldari. I have killed more beings than you could count. I have destroyed worlds. And you saved me anyway." "I did not know all that when I saved you," Junho said. "Would you have killed me if I had not helped you?" Vera considered the question seriously. "Perhaps. Before." She looked toward the kitchen, toward the black cube. "But the Ember chose your world for a reason. I am beginning to understand why." "The Ember. The cube. It is called the Ember of Origin. It is the most powerful object in the known universe. And now it is here, on this small world, in your small house." Vera tried to sit up and failed, pain crossing her face. "Many will come for it. Armies, empires. They will not care about your world or your people. They will burn everything to possess it." Junho looked at the cube sitting innocently on his table. It pulsed gently, peacefully, as if it had no idea of the destruction it would bring. "Then we need to hide it," he said. Vera laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "You cannot hide from what is coming, human. You can only fight or die." "Then we fight," Junho said simply. Vera looked at him again with those burning golden eyes. She looked at this small human man with his simple clothes and his rough hands, who had saved the deadliest warrior in the galaxy without knowing what she was. "You are either very brave," she said, "or very foolish." Junho smiled, the first smile of that terrible night. "Probably both." And somewhere in the darkness between stars, ships began to turn toward a small blue world that had just appeared on the galactic map for the first time. The hunt had begun. 3 days passed. Vera healed faster than any human could, but she was still weak. Her broken arm had begun to mend, and her silver skin had closed over most of her wounds. She spent most of her time sleeping or staring at the ceiling, lost in thoughts she did not share. Junho continued his life as normally as he could. He went to work, fixed engines and changed tires, and told no one about the alien warrior sleeping in his bed. At night, he slept on his old couch and tried not to think about how strange his life had become. On the 4th morning, someone knocked on his door. Junho opened it to find Kim Soo-jin standing there with a basket of food. She was his age, his neighbor since childhood, and worked as a nurse at the local clinic. Her eyes were sharp and her tongue was sharper, and she had known Junho long enough to see through any lie he might tell. "You missed our dinner last week," she said, pushing past him into the house. "And the week before. And you look terrible. When did you last eat properly?" "Soo-jin, wait!" But she was already walking toward the kitchen, and then she stopped. Her eyes found the black cube sitting on the table, still pulsing with its strange light. Her basket fell from her hands. "Junho," she said slowly. "What is that?" Before he could answer, a voice came from the bedroom. "Human, I require water." Soo-jin turned toward the sound. Junho grabbed her arm, but she shook him off and walked to the bedroom door. She looked inside. She saw Vera lying on the bed, four-armed and silver-skinned, and very clearly not human. Soo-jin screamed. It took Junho an hour to calm her down. He explained everything, from the crash to the cube to Vera's warnings about what was coming. Soo-jin sat in his kitchen, drinking tea with shaking hands, staring at the alien artifact on the table. "This is insane," she said. "This is completely insane." "I know. You should have called someone. The police, the government, anyone." "And what would they do?" Junho asked. "Lock her up? Study her? What happens when the armies she talked about arrive and we have no idea how to fight them?" Soo-jin had no answer for that. Instead, she looked toward the bedroom. "She needs medical attention. Real medical attention. Can you help her?" Soo-jin was silent for a long moment. Then she sighed, picked up her basket, and walked toward the bedroom. "I cannot believe I am doing this." Over the next few hours, Sujin examined Vera with careful, professional hands. The alien warrior watched her with curious eyes, saying nothing as Sujin checked her wounds and asked questions about her physiology. Most of the answers made no sense, but Sujin adapted quickly. "Your body is remarkable," she said finally. "You are healing at a rate that should be impossible. Another week, maybe less, and you will be fully recovered." "My kind are built for war," Vera said. "We heal quickly because we must." "Built for war," Sujin repeated. She looked at Junho. "And this war is coming here?" Vera nodded. "The Ember of Origin has chosen your world. I do not know why. In 10,000 years, it has never bonded with a species as young as yours." She looked at Junho. "Bring me the cube." Junho hesitated, then went to the kitchen and picked up the black cube. The moment his fingers touched it, the light inside blazed brighter. The cube grew warm, almost hot, and a strange feeling rushed through his body. It felt like electricity, like sunlight, like being truly awake for the first time in his life. He carried it to Vera. She reached for it with one of her 4 hands, but the cube's light faded the moment she touched it. It became cold and dark, nothing more than a piece of strange stone. Vera pulled her hand back. Her golden eyes were wide. "It responds only to you," she said. "The Ember has chosen a human. After all this time, after testing countless races, it has chosen you." "Chosen me for what?" Junho asked. "I do not know." Vera's voice was quiet, almost afraid. "The Ember contains the seed of creation itself. It was made at the beginning of time, by beings who existed before the first stars were born. It has searched for a worthy species to carry its power into the next age of the universe. Every race that has tried to claim it has failed. They became corrupt. They destroyed themselves. But the Ember believes your kind is different." Junho looked at the cube in his hands. It pulsed gently, peacefully, as if agreeing with Vera's words. "This is too much," Sujin said. "He is just a mechanic. I am just a nurse. We are nobody special." Vera turned her golden eyes to Sujin. "Perhaps that is exactly why the Ember chose your world. You humans do not know you are special. You do not understand what makes you different." "What makes us different?" Junho asked. "Everything." Vera sat up slowly, wincing at the pain in her body. "Your world is a death trap. The gravity is crushing compared to most planets. Your sun bombards you with deadly radiation. Your weather tries to kill you. Your animals, your diseases, your very air. Everything on this world is dangerous. And yet your species survived. You adapted. You conquered this world that should have destroyed you." She looked at Junho with something like wonder. "I have fought across 1,000 star systems. I have faced warriors from 100 different species. None of them have the raw strength of humans. None of them heal as quickly. None of them fight with such complete disregard for their own survival." She paused. "You are what the galaxy calls Deathworlders, and you do not even know it." Junho and Sujin exchanged a look. Neither of them spoke. "The Dominion will arrive soon," Vera continued. "They are an empire that has conquered half the galaxy. They have destroyed worlds for far less than the Ember. When they come, they will expect to find primitives with no way to fight back." A small smile crossed her face. "They will be very surprised." "How do we fight an empire?" Sujin asked. Vera looked at Junho, at the cube glowing in his hands. "We start by learning what the Ember can truly do. And we start by teaching your people how to use the strength they were born with." Outside the small house, the sun was setting over the Korean countryside. Somewhere in the sky, invisible to human eyes, signals were racing across the stars. The Ember had awakened. Its location was known, and ships from a dozen different factions were already beginning their journey toward the small blue world called Earth. The countdown had begun. The first scouts arrived 2 weeks after the crash. They came at night, silent and invisible, landing their small craft in the forest outside the village. Junho would not have known they were there at all if the Ember had not warned him. He was sleeping on his couch when the cube began to burn, not with painful heat, but with urgent warmth, like a hand shaking him awake. He opened his eyes and saw the black cube glowing bright red on the table. Images filled his mind, images that were not his own. He saw dark shapes moving through the forest. He saw long limbs and compound eyes and weapons that looked like nothing from Earth. "They are here," Vera said from the doorway. She was on her feet now, almost fully healed. Her four arms flexed, and her golden eyes burned with cold fury. "Dominion scouts, they have come to confirm the Ember's location." "What do we do?" Junho asked. "I will kill them." "You are still weak, and there might be more of them than you think." Vera smiled, and it was not a pleasant smile. "Then I will kill as many as I can before I fall." But before either of them could move, screams echoed from the village. Not the screams of one person or two, but many. The scouts had not come just for the Ember. They had come for information, and they would take it from anyone they found. Junho did not think. He grabbed a heavy wrench from his toolbox and ran out into the night. Vera shouted after him, but he did not listen. His neighbors were in danger. His people were being hurt. Nothing else mattered. He found the first scout near the village well. It was tall and thin, with 6 legs and arms like blades. Its head was a mass of compound eyes that reflected the moonlight like 1,000 tiny mirrors. It had grabbed old Baek Tai, the retired soldier who lived at the end of the road, and was dragging him toward the forest. Junho did not hesitate. He charged at the creature and swung his wrench with all his strength. The metal connected with the scout's head, and something cracked. The creature dropped Baek Tai and turned toward Junho, its blade arms rising to strike. But Junho was already swinging again, and again, and again. He did not feel fear. He did not feel anything except the desperate need to protect the man on the ground. The scout tried to fight back, its blades cutting Junho's arms and chest, but he did not stop. He could not stop. The creature fell. Silver-green blood pooled on the ground. Junho stood over it, breathing hard, his body shaking with adrenaline and pain. Baek Tai stared up at him with wide eyes. "Junho? What is that thing?" "I will explain later. Can you walk?" The old man nodded and climbed to his feet. Together they moved through the village. They found another scout near the community center. It had collected 3 villagers and was examining them with strange instruments, scanning their bodies and making clicking sounds. Junho attacked it from behind, and Baek Tai grabbed its fallen weapon and used it against the creature. The weapon shot beams of blue light, and the old soldier learned to use it faster than should have been possible. When it was over, 2 scouts lay dead, and the villagers were free. Junho's body was covered in cuts, but he barely felt them. Something inside him had awakened, something primal and powerful that refused to acknowledge pain or fear. Vera found them there. She stood at the edge of the square, her 4 arms crossed, watching Junho with an expression he could not read. "You killed 2 of them," she said, with a piece of metal. "They were hurting my people. They are elite scouts, trained since birth for combat. They have killed warriors from a dozen different species, and you killed them with a wrench." Junho looked at the blood on his hands. "I did not think about it. I just did it." Vera stepped closer. She reached out with one of her hands and touched the cuts on his arms. Already the bleeding had slowed. Already his body was beginning to heal. "This is what I tried to explain," she said softly. "Humans do not understand what they are. You live on a world that has been trying to kill you since your species was born. Every generation, you have fought and survived and grown stronger. You are built for combat in ways that no other species can match." She looked at Baek Tai, who was checking the alien weapon in his hands with the casual expertise of a lifetime soldier. She looked at the villagers, who were already organizing, helping the wounded, securing the area. No one was panicking. No one was frozen with fear. "I have seen civilizations crumble when faced with the unknown," Vera said. "Your people are already adapting, already fighting back. This is unprecedented." More villagers arrived. Among them was Sujin, carrying a medical bag, her face pale but determined. She went straight to Junho and began treating his wounds without a word. "You are an idiot," she said as she worked. "A complete and total idiot. They were going to take Baek Tai. So you attacked an alien monster with a wrench? It worked." Sujin shook her head, but there was something like admiration in her eyes. "Yes, it worked." The ember pulsed in Junho's pocket. He had grabbed it before running out without knowing why. Now he understood. The cube was reacting to him, to his emotions, to his will to protect. It glowed brighter when he fought, when he refused to surrender, when he pushed past fear and pain. It was testing him, and somehow he was passing. The surviving villagers gathered in the community center. Vera stood before them, a towering silver figure surrounded by frightened humans. But she did not see fear in their eyes. She saw anger. She saw determination. She saw the same fire that burned in Yunho's heart. More will come, she told them. What happened tonight was only the beginning. The Dominion will send armies. Other factions will send assassins and spies. They want what this world now possesses, and they will kill everyone on this planet to get it. Then we fight, Bekte said. His voice was steady, the voice of a man who had faced death before and refused to back down. You tell us how, and we fight. Other voices joined his, young and old, men and women, all of them speaking the same words. We fight, we fight, we fight. Vera looked at Junho. He stood among his people, bleeding and exhausted but unbowed. The ember glowed warm in his pocket, responding to the courage around it. Very well, Vera said. Then let us begin. Outside, the first light of dawn touched the sky. Somewhere among the stars, the main Dominion fleet received the scouts' final transmission. The ember was confirmed. The target was locked. The invasion would begin. But on the small blue world called Earth, the humans were already preparing to meet them. Word traveled fast in a small village. Within 2 days, everyone knew about the aliens. Within a week, people from neighboring towns began arriving, some curious, some frightened, some ready to help. The local police came too, and Junho expected them to take control, to push him aside. Instead, they listened to Vera's explanations and joined the effort. The Korean government discovered the situation soon after. Satellites had detected the crash. Military intelligence had intercepted strange signals from space. But instead of sending troops to seize the ember or lock up Vera, they sent observers. They watched. They waited. They understood that this was bigger than any one nation, bigger than any human conflict. The whole world was about to change. Better to learn from those who had already faced the enemy than to stumble blindly into the darkness. Junho found himself at the center of something he never asked for. The ember had chosen him, and that choice made him important in ways he did not want. But he accepted the responsibility because there was no one else. You need more people, Vera told him one morning. Not an army, not yet, but a core group. People you trust completely. People who can learn what I have to teach. Junho thought about it. He thought about the people who had stood beside him that first night, who had not run when monsters came out of the sky. He went to find them. Baktae was the first. The old man was 73 years old, but his hands were still steady and his mind was still sharp. He had served in the military for 30 years, fought in conflicts that the younger generation barely remembered. He knew strategy. He knew combat. He knew how to stay calm when everything was falling apart. I thought I was done with war, he said when Junho asked for his help. But if war has come to my home, then I will fight once more. Kim Sujin was the second. She was not a fighter, but she was smart and brave and utterly practical. While others panicked, she calculated. While others froze, she acted. And in the battles to come, her medical skills would save more lives than any weapon. Someone has to keep you all alive, she said. Might as well be me. The third was Yoon Minho, a young man of 19 who had been caught hacking corporate databases when he was 15. He had served his time and kept his head down since then, working at a computer repair shop in town. But his skills were extraordinary. Within hours of seeing the alien technology, he began to understand it. I do not know how this is possible, Vera said, watching him interface with the captured scout weapons. These systems should take years to decode. He is doing it in hours, Minho shrugged. It is just a different programming language. The logic is the same. The fourth was Choi Dae, a stubborn farmer who lived on the mountain above the village. He was 50 years old, built like a bear, and afraid of nothing. When the scouts had come, he had driven them off his land with a shotgun and a curse. The shotgun had done nothing, but the curse had been impressive. My family has lived on that mountain for 5 generations, he said. I am not leaving because some bug-faced invaders say I should. These 5 plus Vera became the core of Earth's first defense. They trained in secret, in the forests and fields around the village. Vera taught them everything she knew about combat, about alien physiology, about the weapons and tactics of a dozen different species, and they learned. They learned faster than Vera had ever seen anyone learn. Bektai absorbed military strategies from across the galaxy and adapted them to human strengths. He planned ambushes and traps that used Earth's terrain as a weapon. He turned every hill and every river into a defensive position. Sujin studied alien biology and figured out how to hurt creatures that should have been beyond human understanding. She found weak points and vulnerabilities, and she taught the others how to exploit them. Minho cracked the encryption on the captured weapons and figured out how to modify them. He built communication jammers from spare parts. He created devices that could detect approaching spacecraft. Day became an expert in hand-to-hand combat against non-human opponents. His raw strength, combined with the techniques Vera taught him, made him dangerous even against armored enemies. And Junho held them all together. He was not the strongest or the smartest, but the Ember had chosen him for a reason. When he spoke, people listened. When he led, people followed. He had a way of making the impossible seem possible, of making fear into courage, of making strangers into family. The days passed. The training continued. And in the depths of space, the storm grew closer. The Dominion fleet was 1,000 ships strong. Battle cruisers the size of mountains. Troop carriers holding millions of soldiers. Fighter craft that could darken the sky. It was the largest force the Dominion had deployed in a century, all for one small world and one ancient artifact. But the Dominion was not alone. Other factions watched from the shadows. The merchant guilds, who would pay any price for the Ember's power. The old races, who remembered when the Ember was first created and feared what its awakening might mean. The free systems, who hated the Dominion and saw this as a chance to strike. Assassins and spies from a dozen different groups were already on their way to Earth, each with their own agenda. The galaxy was converging on one small blue planet, and at the center of it all, Junho held the Ember in his hands and tried to prepare for what was coming. "Are we ready?" he asked Vera one night, as they watched the stars from the roof of his house. "No," she said honestly. "You are not ready. You cannot be ready. The forces coming for you would make your greatest armies look like children playing with toys. Then why are you still here? You could run. You could take the Ember and disappear." Vera was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "The Ember cannot be taken. It has bonded to you. And even if it had not," she looked at him with those golden eyes. "I have spent my whole life fighting for those who paid me. I have never had something worth fighting for. Until now." She looked back at the stars. "Your people are special, Junho. Not because you are strong, though you are. Not because you are brave, though you are that too. You are special because you care about each other. You fight for each other. In all my years, in all my travels, I have never seen a species that loves so fiercely." Junho did not know what to say, so he just sat there beside her, watching the stars, knowing that among those lights, death was coming. But for the first time since this all began, he was not afraid. The Vanguard arrived on a Tuesday. Minho's detection devices picked them up first, a cluster of ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel just beyond the moon. 10 vessels, each carrying 100 elite warriors. Their mission was simple: secure the Ember, eliminate all witnesses, and prepare for the main fleet's arrival. They expected to find primitives hiding in caves. They expected easy slaughter. They expected to be finished in hours. They were wrong. The ships landed in a ring around the village, their hulls shimmering as they touched down on Korean soil. Ramps extended. Armored figures marched out in perfect formation. They were Dominion shock troops, the best soldiers in half the galaxy. Their armor could stop conventional bullets. Their weapons could level buildings. They had never lost a ground engagement. The village looked empty. Houses stood silent. Streets were deserted. The shock troops moved forward confidently, scanning for life signs, finding nothing. Their commander reported the situation to the fleet. No resistance detected. Primitives appeared to have fled, beginning sweep for the artifact. Then the first bomb went off. It was not a human bomb. Minho had built it from salvaged alien components, a directed energy device that cut through Dominion armor like it was paper. 3 soldiers fell before the others even understood what was happening. Then the gunfire started. Baek Tai had positioned shooters on every rooftop, in every window, behind every wall. They used a mix of human weapons and captured alien ones, and they had been training for weeks to use them effectively. Bullets and energy beams rained down on the invaders from every direction. The shock troops tried to return fire, but the humans were already moving. They did not stay in one place long enough to be targeted. They popped up, fired, and disappeared. They used the narrow streets and tight buildings to negate the aliens' superior firepower. Junho led one of the strike teams. He moved through the village like a ghost, appearing behind enemy lines, taking out soldiers before they knew he was there. The ember pulsed against his chest, guiding him, warning him of danger, giving him strength he should not have possessed. Beside him, Dave fought like a demon. The big farmer had traded his shotgun for a pair of alien blades, and he used them with terrifying skill. He took hits that would have killed other men and kept fighting. His roar of rage echoed through the streets, making even the fearless shock troops hesitate. Sujin ran between positions, treating the wounded, keeping fighters in the battle who should have been dead. She had set up a medical station in the community center, protected by the strongest walls in the village. Injured humans staggered in, and she put them back together with alien medicines and human determination. Minho worked from a hidden basement, coordinating the defense through a network of communication devices he had built. He tracked enemy movements, redirected fighters, jammed Dominion communications. The invaders could not talk to each other. They could not call for support. They were blind and confused in a way they had never experienced. And Vera was everywhere. The deadly warrior moved through the battle like a force of nature. Her 4 arms wielded 4 weapons, cutting down shock troops by the dozens. She was still not fully healed, still weaker than she should have been, but she fought with a fury that made the Dominion soldiers afraid. "Fall back!" The shock troop commander screamed the order as his forces crumbled around him. "Fall back to the ships!" But Baek Tai had planned for that too. Explosives detonated around the landing zone, damaging several vessels and trapping the others. The retreat became a rout. Disciplined soldiers became a panicked mob. By nightfall, it was over. 6 Dominion ships had been destroyed. 2 had managed to escape into orbit. 2 others sat damaged but intact. Prizes for the humans to study. The cost had been high. 47 villagers dead. More than 100 wounded. Buildings burned, streets scarred. The village would never be the same, but they had won. Junho stood in the center of the village, covered in blood and ash, the ember burning bright against his chest. Around him, survivors gathered. They were exhausted, grieving, terrified of what came next. But they were alive. They were free. Vera limped toward him. She had taken a dozen wounds during the battle, and silver blood stained her arms and chest. But she was smiling, a genuine smile that reached her golden eyes. "Do you know what you have done?" she asked. "The Dominion Vanguard has never been defeated, not once in 2,000 years, until today." Junho looked at the burning ships, at the bodies of alien soldiers scattered across the streets. "We lost a lot of people. You lost some. They lost more. And more importantly, you proved something that the galaxy needs to see. Humans are not primitives. Humans are not prey. Humans are warriors." She put one of her hands on his shoulder. "When word of this reaches the fleet, they will not underestimate you again. They will come with everything they have, but they will also come with fear. And fear is a weapon too." The survivors began to organize. The wounded were moved to the medical station. The dead were gathered for burial. The captured ships were secured. Work crews began clearing debris. No one ran. No one gave up. They simply started preparing for the next battle. Baek Tai found Yunho near one of the captured vessels. The old soldier looked more tired than Yunho had ever seen him, but his eyes were bright with purpose. "The government is sending support," Baek Tai said. "Military units, engineers, doctors. Word of what happened here is spreading. People are volunteering to fight." "How long until the main fleet arrives?" "Vera says days, maybe a week if we are lucky." Days. To prepare for 1,000 ships. To prepare for an army that had conquered half the galaxy. Junho looked up at the sky. Stars were beginning to appear, cold and distant. Somewhere among them, death was approaching. "Then we have work to do," he said. He walked toward the medical station where Sujin was still treating the wounded. She looked up as he entered, her hands covered in blood, her face pale with exhaustion. "You should be resting," she said. "So should you." She almost smiled. "We won today." "We did. Are we going to win again?" Junho did not answer immediately. He did not know if they could win against what was coming. He did not know if any of them would survive, but he knew one thing for certain. "We are going to fight," he said, "and whatever happens, the galaxy will remember that Earth did not break." Outside, the work continued. Humans rebuilding, preparing, refusing to surrender. And in the cold depths of space, the Dominion fleet received word of its vanguard's defeat. For the first time in centuries, the Dominion High Command felt something they had almost forgotten. They felt doubt. The night after the battle, Junho could not sleep. His body ached from 100 small wounds. His mind replayed the faces of those who had died. He sat on the roof of his damaged house, holding the ember in his hands, watching its soft light pulse in the darkness. Then the visions began. They came without warning, flooding his mind like a river breaking through a dam. He saw stars being born. He saw galaxies spinning in the endless void. He saw beings of pure light shaping reality with their thoughts. And he saw the creation of the ember itself, forged at the beginning of time, given a purpose that spanned billions of years. The ember was not just a power source, it was a test. The beings who created it had looked into the far future and seen the death of all things. Entropy would consume every star, every world, every form of life, unless a species could be found that was worthy of carrying the universe into its next age. A species that could survive where others failed. A species that could grow and adapt and overcome anything. The ember had traveled from world to world, testing species after species. It gave them power and watched what they did with it. Some became tyrants. Some destroyed themselves. Some simply faded away. None were worthy. For 10,000 years, the ember had searched. For 10,000 years, it had failed, until it came to Earth. Junho saw what the ember saw in humanity. He saw people helping strangers after disasters. He saw soldiers giving their lives for their friends. He saw parents working themselves to exhaustion for their children. He saw love and sacrifice and stubborn refusal to give up even when hope was gone. But he also saw darkness. He saw wars and cruelty and hate. He saw humans killing each other over nothing. He saw the worst that his species could be. "Why us?" he asked the ember. "We are not perfect. We are not good. We are just as broken as every other species." The answer came not in words but in understanding. The ember did not want perfection. Perfection was static, unchanging, dead. The ember wanted potential. It wanted a species that could be terrible and wonderful, that could fall and rise again, that could face the darkness inside itself and choose to be better. Humans were chaos and order intertwined, builders and destroyers, dreamers and killers. They contained every possibility, every future, every hope, and every fear. And that made them the most dangerous species in the universe. It also made them the only species that could save it. The vision faded. Junho found himself still on the roof, the ember cool in his hands. Dawn was approaching. He had been lost in the vision for hours. Vera found him there. She sat beside him without speaking, looking at the lightning sky. "I saw what the ember really is," Junho said finally. "I saw what it wants from us. And what does it want? Everything. It wants us to lead the universe into its next age, to become something more than we are now." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "We can barely stop killing each other. How are we supposed to save reality itself?" Vera was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Do you know why I became a warrior?" Junho shook his head. "Because my world was dying. My people were starving. The only way to survive was to sell our strength to those who would pay for it. I have spent my entire life fighting for money, for power, for people who did not deserve my loyalty." She looked at the ember. "I never believed in anything. I never had hope. Until I came here." She turned to face Junho. Your species is flawed. You are violent and short-sighted and sometimes cruel, but you are also kind and brave and willing to sacrifice everything for each other. I have seen more genuine love in this small village than I have seen in 1,000 years of traveling the stars. Her golden eyes were bright with emotion. The Ember chose well. I believe in humanity now. The question is, do you? Junho thought about his neighbors, his friends, the people who had fought and died beside him. He thought about Su Jin working through the night to save the wounded. He thought about Baek Tae's steady courage. He thought about Minho's brilliant mind and Dae's unbreakable will. He thought about himself, a simple mechanic who had never asked for any of this. The Ember offered me a choice, he said. It said I could unlock its full power and become something more than human, something that could face the Dominion and win. Why did you refuse? Because we do not need to become something else. We need to become more of what we already are. He held up the Ember. I asked it to amplify humanity, not change it, to help us be the best version of ourselves. Vera's eyes widened. And it agreed? It did. The Ember began to glow brighter. Not the soft pulse of before, but a brilliant light that grew stronger with each passing second. Junho felt power flowing through him, not changing him, but enhancing everything that made him human. His senses sharpened. His thoughts clarified. His body felt stronger than it had ever been. And somehow he knew that he was not alone. All across the planet, people were waking up feeling different. Better, more alive. The Ember was broadcasting. It was touching every human being on Earth, amplifying the potential that already existed within them. Soldiers became sharper. Scientists became smarter. Ordinary people found extraordinary courage. Humanity was rising. The fleet will arrive tomorrow, Vera said. 1,000 ships against one planet. Junho stood up, the Ember blazing in his hands. He looked toward the horizon, where military vehicles were arriving with reinforcements. He looked at his village, where survivors were already preparing for the next battle. He looked at Vera, the deadliest warrior in the galaxy, who had chosen to stand with humans. Let them come, he said. We will be ready. Around the world, armies mobilized. Governments set aside their differences and united against a common threat. Scientists worked around the clock to understand alien technology. Factories began producing new weapons. Every human on Earth felt the call and answered it. For the first time in history, humanity was truly united. Not because they were forced to be, but because they chose to be. They looked up at the stars and refused to be afraid. The Dominion had conquered half the galaxy. They had crushed civilizations that were older and stronger than humanity would ever be. But they had never faced anything like this. They had never faced a species that grew stronger under pressure, that adapted to any challenge, that fought not just for survival but for each other. They had never faced the Deathworlders, and tonight they would learn to fear them. The sky turned black at noon. 1,000 Dominion warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. They hung above the Earth like a swarm of iron locusts, blocking the sun and casting shadows across continents. Each ship was larger than any human structure. Each ship carried weapons that could reduce cities to ash. Together, they represented a force that had conquered half the galaxy. The Dominion commander broadcast a single message on every frequency, in every language. His voice echoed from radios and televisions and phones around the world. Inhabitants of the third planet, you have what belongs to the Dominion. Surrender the artifact called the Ember of Origin. Surrender those who have aided the traitor Vera. Comply within 1 hour, and some of you may be permitted to survive as slaves. Resist, and we will burn your world to cinders. There will be no second warning. The message ended. Silence followed. Then, from a small village in Korea, another broadcast began. It was carried on the same alien frequencies, transmitted by Minho's improvised systems. It reached not just Earth, but every ship in the Dominion fleet. Junho's voice was calm. My name is Park Junho. I am a mechanic from Korea. I am nobody special. But I speak for Earth when I say this. We do not surrender. We do not submit. We are not your slaves, and we will never be your slaves. If you want the Ember, come and take it. We will be waiting. He paused. Then he added, we are humans. We are Deathworlders, and you should have stayed in your own corner of the galaxy." The broadcast ended. For a long moment, nothing happened. The Dominion fleet hung motionless in space. Then every ship opened fire. Beams of energy lanced down toward the surface. Nuclear-level explosions bloomed across 3 continents. Cities burned. Mountains crumbled. The first wave of destruction was designed to terrorize, to break humanity's will before the invasion even began. But humanity did not break. Even as the bombs fell, aircraft rose to meet them. Missiles streaked toward the alien fleet. The modified weapons that Minho had created found their targets, and Dominion fighters began exploding in the upper atmosphere. On the ground, Junho stood in the center of his village, the ember blazing in his hands. Its light reached toward the sky, forming a dome of energy that deflected incoming fire. He could feel every human on Earth, their courage feeding the ember feeding them. They were connected now, united in a way that no species had ever been before. The Dominion ground forces began landing, millions of soldiers in thousands of dropships, confident that their overwhelming numbers would crush any resistance. They met the soldiers of Earth. Human armies had been preparing for days. They had studied the alien tactics, learned the weaknesses, crafted strategies that used their home terrain. They fought in cities and forests, in mountains and deserts. They fell back and advanced, hit and ran, never giving the invaders a moment of rest. Baektae commanded the defense of the Korean peninsula. His tactical genius turned every hill into a fortress, every river into a death trap. Dominion advances that should have taken minutes took hours. Hours turned into days. Sujin ran field hospitals under constant fire. She saved thousands of lives, adapting alien medicine to human physiology, never stopping, never resting. When wounded soldiers saw her face, they knew they would be okay. Minho waged a different kind of war. He hacked into the Dominion network, spreading chaos and confusion. Ships collided with each other. Weapon systems failed. Communications broke down. The invaders could not coordinate, could not adapt to an enemy that fought them in ways they had never imagined. Dai led assault teams against the largest enemy positions. He killed more aliens with his bare hands than most soldiers killed with weapons. His legend spread through the Dominion ranks, a nightmare figure that even their bravest warriors feared. And Vera fought beside them all. The deadliest warrior in the galaxy had found something worth dying for. She cut through Dominion elites like they were children, her forearms dealing death in every direction. She took wounds that would have killed any other creature and kept fighting. Days passed. The Dominion's inevitable victory became something else. A struggle, a stalemate, and then, slowly, impossibly, a defeat. 100 ships destroyed, 200, 300. Human losses were horrific, but the survivors kept fighting. Every time the aliens broke through one line, another was waiting. Every time they thought victory was certain, something went wrong. The Dominion commander could not understand. These were primitives. They had no space navy, no advanced technology, no experience with galactic warfare. They should have surrendered in the first hour. Instead, they were winning. On the 5th day, Junho led the final assault. He walked toward the Dominion's main ground base, the ember blazing around him like a sun. Enemy weapons fired at him from every direction, but the ember's light turned them aside. He was not invulnerable, but he did not need to be. Behind him came the combined forces of humanity, every soldier who could still stand, every civilian who had taken up arms. They did not fight for survival anymore. They fought for each other. They fought for their world. They fought for the right to exist without fear. The Dominion line broke. Soldiers who had conquered 100 worlds turned and ran from humans who refused to die. Drop ships fled toward orbit. Commanders called for retreat. And in space, the remaining Dominion ships made the calculation that their commanders had refused to make. 600 vessels lost. Ground forces shattered. The ember firmly in human hands. They ran. The fastest ships fled toward the edge of the solar system, toward the safety of faster-than-light travel. They left their slower vessels behind. They left their ground troops behind. They abandoned everything in their desperate need to escape. Junho stood at the center of the battlefield, surrounded by the wreckage of an alien army. The ember's light faded to a gentle pulse. Around him, humans began to cheer. The sound spread from the battlefield to the villages, to the cities, to every corner of the world. They had won. Vera found him there, standing in the ashes of the Dominion's defeat. She was covered in blood, most of it not her own. Her golden eyes were bright with tears. "In 10,000 years," she said, her voice breaking, "no one has ever defeated the Dominion. Not once. Until today." "We did not do it alone," Juno said. "We did it together." He looked up at the sky, where the last Dominion ships were disappearing into the void. Beyond them, he knew the galaxy was watching. Every empire, every civilization, every sentient being in the universe had seen what happened here. A primitive species on a primitive world had faced the greatest military power in existence and won. "They will come back," Vera said. "Others will come too. The galaxy will want to know how you did this. Some will want to be your allies. Some will want to destroy you before you become too strong." Junho nodded. "Then we will be ready. We will learn. We will grow. And we will protect each other, no matter what comes." The ember pulsed warmly in his hands, content for the first time since it had been created. It had searched for 10,000 years, and finally it had found what it was looking for. A species worthy of carrying the universe into its next age. Months later, Vera stood at the entrance of Yunho's small house. The village had been rebuilt, better than before. Humans had learned to combine their technology with alien knowledge, creating things that neither could have made alone. "You could go anywhere now," she said to Junho. "You are the most famous human in the galaxy. You could lead armies, rule nations, command fleets." Junho shook his head. He was wearing his old work clothes, grease staining his hands. "I am a mechanic. I fix things. That is what I do." He looked up at the stars, visible now in the evening sky. "But I will also be ready. When the next challenge comes, when Earth needs me again, I will be here." Vera smiled. "And I will be beside you." Behind them, the ember sat on the kitchen table, pulsing quietly, waiting for the next adventure, waiting for the humans to show the galaxy what they could do. And across the stars, in 1,000 different languages, a new legend spread. A warning and a promise, whispered in fear and spoken in awe. Beware the humans. Beware the Deathworlders. The Earth had roared, and the universe would never forget.